Hello, my dear listeners. Today I'm taking you to the heart of Africa, to the kingdom of a creature that even lions fear and even elephants step back from. Legends speak of a powerful creature that can flip cars, made of 2.5 tons of pure muscle, capable of toppling trees and pushing elephants aside. With skin thicker than bulletproof vests and a horn sharper than spears, this creature is the ultimate example of survival struggle. Today we're traveling back to the African savannah, where you are one of the big five, the most feared herbivore on Earth. This is your story as nature's ultimate armored warrior. You were born during the wet season in Kenya's Masai Mara. Your mother, a 1.4-ton giant, had been carrying you for 15 months. You came into the world as a 60-kilogram calf, already the size of a large dog. Your skin was pink and soft, but within hours it began developing that legendary thickness. Your tiny horn was just a bump, but it contained the genetic code for a weapon that would make you unstoppable. By the way, you can determine the topic of the next video by commenting one of the animals that will appear at the end of the video. Your mother's milk was unlike any other, packed with nutrients to build a living tank. You needed to gain 3 kilograms every single day to survive in this hostile world. The first lesson was simple. In Africa, everything wants to kill you. Lions, hyenas, crocodiles, and worst of all, humans with guns. But you had something they didn't, the potential to become unstoppable. At 6 months old, you weighed 300 kilograms and stood 1 meter tall. Your horn had grown to 15 centimeters, sharp enough to pierce through bark. Most importantly, your legendary temper was beginning to show. Your first real test came when a leopard attacked your mother while you were drinking at the waterhole. You watched in amazement as she charged, 55 kilometers per hour of pure fury. The impact sent the predator flying 10 meters. That day, you learned what power really meant. Your skin was thickening every day. By now, it was 2 centimeters thick, tougher than leather armor. Thorns that would cripple other animals bounced off you like nothing. The savannah became your classroom. You learned to identify 200 different plants, but more importantly, you learned to fight. Every day brought new challenges, territorial disputes, predator encounters, drought survival. Your horn grew 7 centimeters per year. By your first birthday, it was already a formidable weapon. You used it to strip bark, dig for water, and intimidate rivals. But its real purpose was yet to come. At 2 years old, you weighed 800 kilograms and stood 1.4 meters tall. Your horn was now 30 centimeters of deadly bone, harder than steel and sharper than any spear. Your mother began teaching you the rules of territory. Black rhinos don't share. Your future domain would be 25 square kilometers of prime savanna, and you'd fight to the death to defend it. The first territorial challenge came from a young bull who thought he could intimidate you. He was wrong. Your charge generated 2.5 tons of kinetic energy, enough to flip a small car. The impact of your horn against his flank sent him tumbling. You discovered your incredible senses. Your hearing could detect footsteps 100 meters away. Your sense of smell was so powerful you could identify individual animals from their scent trails. But your eyesight was poor, which made you even more dangerous because you charged first and asked questions later. Your daily routine became focused on building strength. You'd charge at trees for practice, developing the muscles that would make you unstoppable. Each impact made you stronger, each charge more devastating. At 5 years old, you reached adult size, 1.5 meters tall, 3 meters long, and 1.4 tons of muscle and rage. Your horn now measured 50 centimeters, a perfect weapon designed by millions of years of evolution. Your territory was established through blood and violence. 25 square kilometers of prime acacia woodland, 3 permanent waterholes, and the best grazing in the region. Any trespasser faced your wrath. Your skin had reached its final thickness, 5 centimeters of living armor. Bullets could barely penetrate it. Thorns, claws, and teeth were useless against you. You'd become a biological tank. Your charging speed peaked at 55 kilometers per hour. The ground shook when you ran. Trees splintered when you hit them. Your horn could pierce through thick bark like it was paper. Lions learned to avoid you completely. Even elephant herds gave you respect. You were no longer prey, you were the predator that predators feared. The African savanna had its own hierarchy, and you sat near the top. Only elephants commanded more respect than a fully grown black rhino. Below you were the lions, Africa's supposed kings, but they knew better than to challenge you. Your horn could gut a lion with one thrust. Your charge could break their spine. They hunted in packs because they were weak. You hunted alone because you were unstoppable. Leopards, cheetahs, and hyenas weren't even worth your attention. They fled at the sound of your approach. Your reputation preceded you across the entire savanna. The herbivore hierarchy was clear. Elephants at the top, then you, then everyone else scrambled for the scraps. Buffalo herds parted when you approached waterholes. Zebras and antelopes kept their distance. Your territory included 3 separate ecosystems: woodland, grassland, and riverine forest. You knew every tree, every rock, every hiding spot. This was your kingdom, and you ruled it with an iron horn. At 10 years old, you were ready to establish your genetic legacy. Mating season brought new challenges, other males who thought they could claim your territory and your females. The battles were epic. Horn clashing against horn, 2.8 tons of muscle colliding at full speed. These weren't fights, they were collisions between living tanks. The sound echoed across the savanna for kilometers. You won every battle. Your combination of size, speed, and fury was unmatched. Defeated rivals limped away with broken ribs and shattered pride. Your bloodline would continue. Your mate was a female who ruled her own territory adjacent to yours. Together, you controlled 50 square kilometers of prime real estate. Your offspring would inherit the best land in Africa. Raising calves required a different kind of strength. You had to be gentle enough not to accidentally harm them, but fierce enough to protect them from everything trying to kill them. It was the ultimate test of controlled power. At 15 years old, you were at the peak of your power. Your horn had reached 60 centimeters, a weapon that could penetrate steel. Your body weight peaked at 1.6 tons of pure muscle. Your legendary temper was now famous across 3 national parks. Rangers warned tourists about the demon rhino, who would charge safari vehicles just for entering his territory. You had attacked 17 vehicles and won every encounter. Your charging power could generate 3 tons of impact force. You once demolished a park storage building by running through it. Another time, you flipped a Land Rover that got too close to your favorite mud wallow. Your senses had become extraordinary. You could smell poachers from 2 kilometers away. Your hearing detected helicopter rotors before they appeared on the horizon. Your survival instincts were perfect. The savanna bent to your will. Animals changed their migration routes to avoid your territory. Even the landscape bore the scars of your power. Trees stripped of bark, paths carved by your massive feet, wallows sculpted by your enormous body. At 20 years old, you had become a living legend. Documentary crews traveled from around the world to film the unstoppable rhino. Your reputation had spread far beyond Africa. Your territory now included some of the most valuable land in Kenya. 5 permanent water sources, the richest grazing areas, and natural barriers that made it defensible. You had built an empire through sheer force. Your horn was now 65 centimeters of polished bone, worth more than gold on the black market. This made you the most hunted animal in Africa. But you had survived 17 poaching attempts through pure aggression and paranoia. By the way, don't forget to follow our one and only real Instagram account. You can reach the link from the channel description. Your family dynasty included 12 offspring across 4 different females. Each inherited your legendary temper and unstoppable charging power. Your genetic legacy was spreading across the savanna. Other rhinos spoke of you in whispers. Young bulls made pilgrimages just to see the legendary warrior who had never lost a fight. You were more than an animal. You were a force of nature. At 25 years old, you faced your greatest challenge yet, the modern world. Poachers with helicopters, night vision, and high-powered rifles. But you adapted with the cunning of a true survivor. You learned to associate the sound of aircraft with danger. When helicopters approached, you charged into the thickest bush where they couldn't land. Your paranoia became your greatest weapon. Your territory included ancient elephant paths that led to hidden valleys. You used these secret routes to disappear when the hunting pressure became too intense. The landscape that you knew better than any human became your armor. You developed relationships with local Maasai warriors who protected you in exchange for your role in their traditional ceremonies. This unlikely alliance kept you alive when government protection failed. Your economic value to ecotourism was enormous. Hotels, safari companies, and airlines made millions from people wanting to see the last warrior. You were worth more alive than dead, but not everyone understood mathematics. The irony wasn't lost on you. Your own power had made you a target. The horn that made you unstoppable also made you the most valuable target in Africa. At 30 years old, you were ancient by rhino standards. Battle scars covered your hide like medals of honor. Your horn, worn down by decades of use, was still 45 centimeters of deadly bone. You had outlived most of your original rivals. The young bulls you once fought were now elders themselves, telling stories of the day they challenged the invincible one and lived to regret it. Your territory had become a protected sanctuary. International conservation groups had declared it a UNESCO site, partly because of your presence. You were the living symbol of wild Africa's last stand. Your wisdom now guided your actions more than rage. You knew which humans to fear and which to tolerate. You understood the rhythms of modern conservation politics. You had learned to be patient. The next generation looked up to you, literally and figuratively. Your genetic legacy lived on in dozens of descendants who ruled territories across East Africa. Your bloodline had become a dynasty. You felt immortal, invincible. 30 years of survival had convinced you that nothing could stop the unstoppable force you had become. But that morning started like any other. You were headed to your favorite mud wallow, the same path you'd taken for 20 years. The acacia trees provided perfect shade. The water was cool and clear. Then you caught the scent, the metallic smell of gun oil mixed with human sweat. Poachers. Your ancient enemy had found you again, but this time felt different. This time, they were ready for your legendary charge. You did what you had always done, what your genetics, your experience, and your pride demanded. You lowered your massive head, aimed your 45-centimeter horn, and charged at 55 kilometers per hour toward the threat. For 30 years, this charge had been unstoppable. For 30 years, it had solved every problem, defeated every enemy, overcome every obstacle. You were the force that no object could resist. But science has its own rules, and even legends must face reality. The tranquilizer dart hit you mid-charge, and for the first time in your life, your legs betrayed you. As the drugs took hold, you realized that all your power, all your fury, all your legendary status couldn't stop time itself. The world was changing faster than evolution could adapt. Your last thought was of your territory, those 25 square kilometers of paradise that you had defended with your life. Your greatest hope was that your children would be stronger, smarter, and luckier than you had been. In the end, you learned that true power isn't about never falling. It's about charging forward regardless of the odds, defending what matters most, and leaving a legacy worth remembering. Life is a territory worth defending. Power is meaningless without purpose. And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply refusing to surrender.